Lead everybody pulling our topics together, make sure we're on the same page because this is a complex topic today.
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying complex. It's just unusual. It's not. It's different. Yeah. So anyway, well, let's dive right into it, and then we'll get to our questions.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazzard, along with my co-host, Tracy. And today we're going to talk about how you can use your podcast to actually effectively promote a product. And I want to state right off the bat, this could be an information product or a physical product. So before everybody, tunes out and says, oh, I don't have a product, I'm not necessarily talking about a physical thing you'd ship to somebody.
Yeah, but I also want to insert product could also mean webinar. Mm-hmm. It could mean event. Insert those, and this still applies as to something you might think about. Okay. So when we look at products or something you're buying from it, like an event ticket, like an info product, like a course, like that type of view of it is when we're looking at a thing that you're buying of some kind of way, shape, or form. The tendency in podcasting is to go to salesy, to promo. A podcast is not a webinar. A podcast is not a sales channel. It's a opportunity for you to let people know about these things and know about the benefits, but you have to do it in a more informational and content-driven way. And that's the switch that we want to make in your mind. If it's going to be effective, it's not a sales message. A podcast is not it. The minute podcasts get too salesy, they will unsubscribe. Listeners will unsubscribe to your entire show. So the minute you do it on one episode, they start to think, they've switched the whole thing. So if you're going to do something like that, you better announce it. It's like all of a sudden you went from having a wonderful web series, like, think about any kind of Netflix series, to all of a sudden having an infomercial.
Having said that, Tracy, I do want to emphasize, though, that having a product, digital product, info product, event, or physical product or otherwise, does represent a huge opportunity for you as a podcast host, because it can be the driver of a lot of organic, authentic, and valuable content that, if you do it right, also promotes that product through your podcast.
Right. So one of the three ways that Tom and I want to talk about today is this idea of where the offer happens, what that might be, and an infomercial model, meaning you want to have an entire episode that's focused on this thing. Like you might want to take the webinar that you're selling your course on and you want to put it into your podcast. We want to make sure that you're being clear about it and marking it for what it is, a glorified commercial, right? So if you're going to do that as an entire episode, make sure you're making it in addition, like make it an extra episode for the month, a bonus episode, an additional episode, and make sure that you're making an announcement about why you're sharing it. You don't just throw your bumpers on it and then just run into this webinar that you've now aired as your episode. Make sure you're putting in an introduction to it that is understandable as to why it's there. Remember, in the Podetize system, we're really lucky in that we can put on different intro outros to any episode because you can add them on. So you can create a special intro outro, or you can use your ad mixing system to put the ads on like an introduction that's different for this special episode, for this special infomercial that you're going to have, this webinar style episode. So mark that and make it differentiated. Don't just try to lump it in and pass it off like a regular episode. It will not go over well. It will be a opportunity for unsubscribe.
Definitely want to avoid that.
Right. So with that, I want to also mention that we do recognize that if you're going to offer up your product, your info product, your course, your event, or your physical product, and you want to offer it up, not recording it within your episode in its entirety as a part of the content of the episode is a better path. Treating it like a separated promotional piece is critically important. And the reason why may be surprising to you. The reason why we recommend not recording it like within the content of the episode, but recording it as a separate piece, and of course, adding it in to it in the right place within the episode is great. Doing that in your regular episodes is because when you're introducing a new product, a new event, a new course, your messaging is not dialed in yet. And you may very well want to change that. And so treating it like a separated commercial, an ad, a promotion, that's why we built the system that we built, so that you could drop it in, change it, and replace it when you realize this is the best way for me to introduce this product. This is the best way for me to actually get sales conversion on this product. And so, sometimes when you're doing that in emails, you call that A/B testing, or you're doing that in ads on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you're selling the product itself or selling the course itself. You would do this in an A/B testing way till you got it dialed in and right. But yet, most people won't do that on their podcast. They just were like, here's my episode. And oh, by the way, I've got this new course and I just want to tell you all about it. And they spend 5 minutes talking about it. And it's now built into this episode. And yet it wasn't the most effective way to sell it. So Tom's and my model here is for you to not do it within your regular content. Create a space for it where you want to talk about it, where you're going to drop it in, like create a natural space for it. That's great to do that. But make sure that you do the promo of it in its own separate recording piece and treat it like an advertisement promotion that you drop in so that you can refine that promotion of it, change it later, and update it.
That's really a fantastic suggestion, Tracy. And it's very, very true. I mean, anyone who's worked with anyone in a real direct marketing campaign, forget the context of a podcast, but even on social media or email campaign, you always come up with so many different messages and you put them out there because you don't know which ones are going to resonate, which ones are going to be effective, which ones are going to kill the sale. I mean, a lot of times message sent is not message received the way you hope it's going to be. So you've got to test many different things. And that's really the best reason to, when you're doing it in a podcast and you have not just one promotion, multiple different, and you want to also, when you have multiple, you want to make sure your call to action, what people are going to go and do, that there's a way you can track which one of those ads they responded to and came from. And so that may mean even if you have the same info product or the same physical product that you're marketing, you want to have a different landing page that you're sending people to, or a different promotion code, something that's going to be different. So you know when they convert, which message did they hear? You've got to have a way to evaluate and understand that.
Right. And so if you're not using Podetize and you're not using our ad mixing system for you to drop in these promotions, then you should think about doing them as a separated segment so that you can re-edit it very easily for yourself. We built our system so that it would be so simple to update this messaging and update these promotions. All you have to do is fix them on the back end, just click update, and it updates in all the episodes. You're just changing your ad essentially, and now it's updating everywhere. So we made this really simple in our system. It's why we did it, because we understand that promoting products, because Tom and I have huge product experience. If we didn't mention that already, we really ought to step up and say that. Now, mostly we have physical product experience, but we do have product experience in courses and events and all of those other things, and selling those and promoting those. But Tom and I come out of the product design and development world. So we've sold products in every format possible, in physical stores, by catalogs, old school catalogs, by mailers, by websites, by, e-commerce, through Amazon, we've done every which way you can sell a product. We've been involved in that process of it, in designing the product, launching the product, and selling the product through, or marketing the product through that process. We've either supported it, given information to it, helped build it. So all of that we have experience in. And what we know is that this messaging changes. And so because we know it, we built in a system to be able to handle that on our podcast side. We've used it ourselves. It's exactly what we did. Was we would run a course and then decide it didn't work out. We didn't want that course anymore. And the last thing we wanted was to go re-edit our show to remove it. And that's why we're recommending that you keep it separated in either how you deploy it or the fact that you have it and you know that it's here. You've marked the section for yourself so that if you need to remove it later, you're going to go back and fix and edit your show to remove that later. It's more work on that side if you're not utilizing a system like ours, but you still should think about doing it because it creates a much more relevant and current experience for the new listeners that are coming into those episodes and into your show. The other thing I want to mention, as we talked about having a separated infomercial, is that if you drop the course, it makes it really easy for you to take that episode out of your feed. Now, what we do recommend is delisting it in the feed, but because many of you sent out emails, probably did website promotions, did other things that may actually track, maybe got some publicity, outside PR, had affiliates sell it, do not discontinue it off of your blog. You can remove the page or make it a delisted page so it's not in the general blog or in its pages within your website, but we tend to not delete it. That's not our process there. We just delist it from all of those things. However, in the podcast feed, if you are discontinuing it, we delete it out of the podcast. And this is extremely important because if you've got something old and you're not selling it anymore, the last thing you want is it to be there. So make sure you're removing those infomercial episodes if you no longer are selling the product in the future or its promotion period is over and whatever that offer that you made at the end of that infomercial or special episode is removed or replaced. So that's our way. That's the most common way. We're sort of taking off the sales pieces first. But what are some really cool alternative ideas, Tom? Let's go into some of these 2 alternative ideas we have for effective ways to really sell without selling from your podcast.
Well, and I actually would say it does end up being selling. It's just not how you might think. I mean, with a lot of these products, and keep in mind, your listeners, unless you haven't launched a show yet, if you've got a show out there, you've got listenership, you've been providing them value, and now you've created some product that you think they might be interested in. And obviously you should use your platform, your podcast to, raise awareness for it. Well, what if you make some content out of it? What's the backstory behind this product? Why did you create it? What was the need? What's the reason for being, with a good reason why you spent all this time and effort creating this product? Just saying, hey, I've got it, don't you want to buy it? I mean, that's sort of,
So
sales,
let's look at this like a backstory development, like a documentary about the product itself, right? Like thinking about some of those things. What stories do you want to tell about the product that are really going to help people understand why it's there, how they can benefit from it, and how much work you put into it? And so we did this with Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard came to us as a sponsor, and we said, that's great. We can put ads across our show, and we'll be happy to do it. But if we created this partnership to create a 25 episode series, and we developed 10 of those episodes, are these unusual interviews into how a printer was created, why you have this sustainability model for the filament and for the way that you make your parts and what you do. Let's tell all these stories about it. And let's interview some people who've never been on camera or behind the mic before and really get the back understanding. Now, in that, we did give them the option to edit out anything that was untrue, something that was a mistake, or maybe something that the lawyers would have flipped out at it because it's proprietary information. We had one small edit out of all of the 10 episodes. So they were happy that they had the opportunity to do that. And you might be happy, because if you're going to interview your engineer and, you're developing a SaaS product that you're going to launch, and the software engineer, and maybe he's not the most, he or she are not the most, eloquent behind the mic. They've not used to being in that position. You want the opportunity to edit that. Use it, but use it lightly, because I think people really like to hear that authenticity of who that person is and what they care about and why they developed it. And like hearing their story is actually really great, but use it so that you are not revealing something that you wanted to keep a secret, or something that you really shouldn't say, or a client you really shouldn't mention that might be using it, or some way that it was used that is proprietary information. So use it that way to edit, but definitely tell these stories with these great backstories and these great people who don't necessarily come out and get to tell their story on your team. It's fantastic to have them there.
And I want to really make it clear here that for most of you listening to this and watching this video, you're not going to have a third-party sponsor you're doing this with, but it's your own product, right? Something you've developed. Your course, your your event you're going to put on, why did you do your own event, or why are you partnering with somebody on their event? I mean, there's got to be some backstory behind it, a reason why you did it. That's not just, I need to make some money and I got to create some stuff I can sell. Hopefully there's quite a bit more behind it. And then you can tell that story as a great piece of content in your podcast.
Right. And it's not just like the development of the product, but if you've got a course, is somebody else teaching this with you? Is there somebody else who's a piece of the content that you're going to be doing? Are you using excerpts from a book? Maybe that author can be on with you. Maybe there's some things that you can do. If your book is your product that you're launching, which it could very well be, if you have a co-author, if you had different people featured within the chapters, those would be great co-interviews to do and co-episodes to share in and share the information on.
Here's another idea. Let's say you do have an online course. Well, you could talk about your online course, but and raise awareness for it, but your focus of that episode could be the online course platform you're using, because most people are using a third-party product to help pace people through the course. And, it may even be where people pay for it. There may be all sorts of other things. You could be focusing on, hey, I wanted to let you all know, any of you that may be considering an online course, there's lots of different platforms you can use. I want to share with you the one I used and why I did. And you actually can seemingly make it about that. But at the same time, you're going to be talking, well, for my course, which is about this, I had these needs. And
right. I didn't call these modules. I decided to call them this, even though that's what they are in the system. And this is how I renamed them. And and you're revealing some of the aspects of your course in the process. Tom, I love that idea. I think that's really great. This actually reminds me of the story of how Pat Flynn actually came to being a podcast coach. Is Pat Flynn was a blogger. He started his podcast. His podcast was all about passive income, right? Smart passive income. And that's what he was really talking about. And so it was all about ways at which you do affiliate programs and you do all of those things. And that's what he was talking about on the show originally. But his episode that he did about the creation of the podcast itself became one of his most popular episodes. Now, remember, back then when he did this, it was really no one was really podcasting or teaching podcasting except maybe John Lee Dumas at that time. So it was kind of there wasn't as crowded as it is now, right?
It was podcasting 1.0 and we're probably at least 3.0 right now,
Right. And so there was a whole lot more complication on how you start a podcast that he needed to go into. And so that one episode turned into 5 episodes, turns into 50 episodes. And before you know it, that was the entire focus of his business. And so that is also something to think about, is like revealing the behind the scenes of how you built something could actually be a side business you didn't even know you were going to be an expert in. But we do hear that one a lot as well. And so they can become some of your most popular episodes, doing what Tom just proposed, this idea of revealing the platform or the process by which you developed your course, your info product, your book, you invite your publisher in, talk to them, like you never know how you might want to go about the process.
And in fact, one of the things that I've learned about sales in the last, gosh, what is it now? 5-7 years. One things that I've learned is when you inject some uncertainty into the process, that actually usually makes people want it more. So when you're talking about whatever this other tool is that you used, and heck, you could be talking about, like in your case, Tracy, people might say, wow, your videos in your course are so good. And they don't know you've got a really serious, heavy duty, not your average webcam. It's like a serious, digital camera that is connected to your computer. Right. I know. But my point is, you can talk about something like that and say, and I did this because I developed my course to do this. Now I'm not really going to go deep into my course right now, but my course on this right now, whatever. And it'll end up seeming like, wait, he buried the lead. I mean, yeah, the camera's great, but what about that course, right? You'll get people intrigued and wanting to know more about it, and they sort of pull themselves into reaching out to you to find out, or looking into, or searching on your website or wherever it is about your course.
Right. And on those episodes, this is what we learned from doing this with HP, is you can have a special outro where it's not your normal outro that you put with your regular episodes. You could say in that outro is just like, it could be your voice instead of your voiceover artist for a change, because it's just like, hey, in this episode, I realized I was talking about my course. Want to make sure you know how to find it and know how to access it, because I realized I just left that hang in there for you. So I'd like to tell you all about it now. And so here's where you can find it. Here's what it holds. And there's this webinar, there's this video on the site that tells you all about it. Please use the link podetize.com/bootcamp to go to it. And you've given that, and that's a real URL, by the way. That's our course on how to podcast. So If you haven't started your show yet, go check it out. It's free. And if you have started your show, share it, pay it forward. So that's also something you could say on your outro that really helps. It's like, hey, if you've already taken my course, or you've already done this before, great, pay it forward to somebody who needs it and let them know about it. That would help me the most if you got good content today. And so inviting them into the opportunity in your outro is also another way to put a commercial on it. And an outro is easy to take off later if you've changed your mind and put your regular outro back on. On our system at Podetize, putting on intro outros, they're replaceable. And so those are really easy for you to update and change them and fix them as you move forward. So you can do it per episode, or you can do it across all the episodes, depending on what you'd like to do at the time. So that's an opportunity as well.
Nice example, Tracy, of selling our platform without selling it. I'm emphasizing it only because this is an episode about doing that, but that was actually that otherwise would have been
in there.
Something you slipped in just as sort of an aside, that then some people are going to like, whoa, wait a second, even I don't have to re-edit if I want to change all that, and check it out.
It's a great way to do that. So that's it. So this sort of backstory, content-driven model is really something to seriously think about. It's like, what's going to interest people? How am I going to engage them? How am I going to tell them about things? But also remember that if you've got an event, or your product is not your product, your affiliate selling it for somebody else, you have somebody to interview. Make sure you're taking advantage of those opportunities for interviews with your events. Maybe it's all the speakers on it. You're giving them an opportunity. Now you probably got 10 episodes you could create. The other thing is, don't overwhelm your feed with it. Remember that you do also have an obligation to deliver the podcast. So if this is slightly separated and it's not within the content topic, make it a special series, make it a bonus episode, add a second episode per week, especially if you're trying to, in a consolidated period of time, like launch the product and promote it and try and get a lot of sales within a time period. Having some extra episodes during that time is a really good idea, and being able to also continue to have your regular episodes as well, so you don't alienate your listener base from the topics that you're normally covering every single week.
I think a common product a lot of people might have who are podcasters that they're trying to promote is a book that they have published, right? And I think that's another sort of obvious example where there could be a backstory for, why'd you create your book? You can use excerpts of your book as topics, and then you can mention, I wanted to share this topic with you today. I go into this in much more depth in my book, which you can find on my website here. And it's just a casual mention. Doesn't necessarily have to be a whole separate ad, although it could be. And it kind of depends more what you're using your book for, if you're really selling it for a revenue stream, or if a book is more of something you're putting out there just to,
like the info product, right? It's like an ebook or.
Well, and it's really a prelude to people signing up to have you consult one-on-one with them, or to then buy your course. I mean, it sort of depends. Some people, the book is a loss leader. You're not really charging for it, but it just, gets people to understand you better and then want to work with you more. But anyway,
and a book is a great thing because it will continue to move forward. Typically, you're not going to discontinue your book. Very rarely does somebody do that if you've published it, right? I mean, because it's still available in ebook. It's just so easy. You might discontinue the hardcover, but you're not going to discontinue the ebook. And so it's super easy to continue to have that in. So putting that in and discussing that on your episode, or interviewing someone who was featured in the book, doing some of those things are really great models that can continue to go forward and have an evergreen kind of content model for you, because the book will still be there in the future, where the course or the product might get discontinued, and the book rarely does. So that's always a great model. The third way that we typically like to talk about it is just this slight twist on what we were talking about, which is we were talking about the development, the people involved in, the backstories behind all of those things about this. But what about the people who have taken it, used it, read it, and are now implementing it in some way, shape, or form? We want to get to those use cases, those case studies of success stories out of using our products or our info products or reading our book, and what did they accomplish with it? So these stories might not be some of the first things you do in the launch, but they might be some monthly follow-up you do to continue to boost sales and visibility to your course ongoing, to your book that you've been selling, so that you might want to squeeze in one of these every single month. And it's this story of someone who's been utilizing it successfully. It's not 100% testimonial video, or, a testimonial video is short and to the point and all rave about it. But testimonials will happen because they'll be talking about specific actions that they took on their own side to implement what you told them about. So they're hearing about what's the wonderful nuggets in your book, in your course, and in your programs and in your product. And then they're talking about how they're using it on the other side and what that looks like and what that is. Tom and I have a couple of great examples before I let Tom tell us some more about his ideas here, but we did a little podcast as a test called The Next Little Thing. And it is still live, but we did do some product reviews. Now, this is our uses, but it's as if we were the use case story. And that's what we were talking about here. So we were talking about using, and one of Tom's favorite ones, and honestly, actually, when I looked at the statistics, one of our most popular episodes is the use of this mouthwash.
Really? Is that the most popular one?
There are two, but that's the one, that's the second most popular. And it is really simply basically this like honesty about Tom talking about it, about how he struggled with his breath and started using this thing, and it's like a miracle. It's like a little miracle. And so we'll link that to the episode in the blog post, and we'll make sure that you can sort of see that next little thing episode and kind of hear how we talked about it, because we really told a story. We didn't just rave about the product, and that's the kind of thing you want to get out. Now, of course, we're talking about it and using it ourselves, so that's a little bit different, but I'm not a user of it. So I was asking Tom some questions there. So it's probably the best one model to use if you're thinking about doing these sort of use case success story, testimonial style podcast episodes as a part of the promotion of your product.
That is a good example, Tracy. You know, I think with case studies, if it were my product, I would, before I even really launch it, have someone use it, experience it, so that I could talk about the case study as I launch it. But that may not be able to happen for everybody. So then, yeah, it may come later on, as you suggested. But it's if you focus on the outcome, the story of the outcome that was achieved, the need that was met, the benefit that was achieved by whoever, used this product, and focus more on them. And then it'll be obvious, well, they achieved it through making use of your product. Then that's going to be your, that's kind of social proof, is really what that is at the end of the day. It's proof of others that have used it and gotten value. And those kind of people love to listen to stories in podcasts. I mean, podcasting through storytelling. In fact, one of our podcasters has a book somehow about storytelling. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Better Selling Through Storytelling, I think, is actually what it is.
Oh, you're talking about John Livesay's book.
John Livesay's book. Yeah, he has the Successful Pitch podcast. And he's another really good example of doing part of this. And in fact, what he is selling is himself, and he's a paid professional speaker, and all these things, are social proof for that. And testimonials come out of these case studies and stories too. So no, that's a huge, the successes, the wins, you've got to get some, have some, get people to take it.
Yeah. And here's something that I really also want you to be aware of, is the titling of those episodes are so key. Too often when people title testimonials and do things like that in these kinds of stories, is they go like, Tom Hazzard on TheraBreath mouthwash, and so it's like you want the name of the product and the person's name, and it's like, or so-and-so raves about, instead of a title that is actually going to get more people to click on it, because they don't know who Tom Hazzard is at this point that they're reading this, and they don't know what this mouthwash brand is, or whatever the thing is that you're selling. They don't know the name of your book. They don't care about that. They care about the thing that they want, the result, right?
Right.
So we named that. Yeah. So like, if you look at the episode that I was talking about, we called it "This Powerful Mouthwash Will Boost Your Confidence and Really Works." Don't you want to click that? That makes you really think about something. It's like, it didn't name TheraBreath. It didn't tell you who said it. It told you about why this is worth reading about, listening to, and watching, right? And so we had a couple of other just episode titles that I think would be really cool. Remember, we were testing out a couple of different things. We found the absolutely best healthy gift for that hard to buy for friend. That we use that title. And maybe that's the story of why they bought this. It could be that, or why they gifted this. That could be a story that's being told. And then we did a tool. So here's an example for if your info tool might be an app, or your SaaS product's actually an app. How can an internet speed test app make our high use app list. So like we talked about that in that case. So you're saying, how can this do this for you? Or how can it, do something great? In this case, it made our list, but that's because that's also a way to like get, making the best of lists is a really good way to promote a product, but it usually shouldn't be your own list. It should be somebody else's. So that's an outside product promotion. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about inside product promotion within your own content, within your own podcast and video cast.
And in fact, we do have a new podcaster we're supporting at Podetize who already has developed an app. It's literally in the approval process with the Apple App Store and the Android App Store. And it's going to be an interesting case study to see how he uses his podcast that's already established and out there to raise awareness of the app. It is in alignment with what his podcast is about. And so that not a lot of podcasters really go to the effort and significant cost of developing your own mobile app that's distributed through those app stores. That's kind of rare. And it's not an app for listening to the podcast. It has nothing to do with that. It's like a different, kind of a community app. But he's going to do this, and I'm very excited to track and see how that works over time and how he uses his podcast to raise awareness.
Right. And so some podcasters create their entire show around supporting the community for their course. And so for those of you who already have a podcast that maybe isn't quite the right fit for that, that's also something where you could create a spin-off show. And so it's an opportunity for you to create a little special show that's just for the users of the course or the people who came through it. And maybe it's a private podcast. Maybe it's a public one. I always like the public idea because it gets people in and are like, I didn't take the course and look how far ahead they are. Like there's always so many wonderful stories, opportunities in this testimonial side for you to only interview members of the course. So anybody who tries to solicit you to be a guest on your show, you just be like, sorry, you're not a paying member of my community and you didn't take my course. So I won't interview you. But if you did that, then we could have a conversation when you've been successful. So like it allows you to be really exclusive about how you're serving that community and promoting them within it as well. And that always works really well because they'll definitely share it out. If they've taken this course and it's created a more successful business for them, they're going to share it out. It's promotion for their business, not just for you and the course at that point. So keep in mind, these success stories are really the approach model mindset rather than testimonials. While testimonials might be little clips that come from the show, and it's an opportunity to record testimonials without asking your clients, your users and consumers of the products to give you a testimonial, which can be really hard to get them to do. You can take a clip from that show and use it on your testimonial page on your website, and you've done it all at once. You gave them promotion. You got a success story that's wonderful content for you to promote the product. And you've got a little testimonial clip for you to put on your website at the end of the day, and you can use it in video, in audio, or in print, like, use a quotation that comes out of it. And you've got every format possible all ready for you. It's one of the best ways to do it. It's how we created all of the ones for Podetize. All of them came out of interviews that we did with success stories with podcasters who were our clients.
But not for lack of trying to do it the other way of just requesting a testimonial. And I just want to sort of share a little tip for what not to do. Your suggestion is excellent, Tracy, to have as a part of a podcast case study, episode, whatever, to you as the host can guide that conversation and bring out of the person those sound bites that you'd want to use as a testimonial. It'll end up being a lot more something that you want it to be. It's something that's going to be effective for you. Those times when we've asked for people to record a testimonial, they get a little like in front of that camera wanting to do it, and then it becomes really hard for them to do, and they record a bunch of things they're not really happy with, and then hopefully they still give it to you. But it can be awkward and not so effective unless somebody is a really seasoned, I guess, speaker and is very, how do I say, self-motivated, self-sufficient, and has some marketing skills and knows how to get to the point. But if they don't, like most people probably don't, what you suggested of, conducting that discussion with them, highlighting the case study, and you sort of lead them and can bring out of them those excellent quotes, much easier than just, hey, would you give me a testimonial?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think we did a whole episode on that somewhere. I'll
Testimonials,
have to find it.
we might have.
I think we did a whole coaching class on that for sure. Whether it made it into the podcast or not, it might have predated us using the coaching program for when we do the coaching program separate from the podcast.
Yeah.
So it might have predated that, but I'm pretty sure it exists somewhere. If not, we have a whole class on referrals, and I know that's a part of that, a master class on that. So
Excellent.
yeah.
All right. Well, boy, Tracy, I can't believe we had as much stuff to talk about this topic. Before we started this episode, I was like, well, this will be a pretty quick one. And now it's actually been quite a while. So there was a lot to talk about. And I certainly hope that our listeners got some value today. And especially if either this is something that you have a need to do to promote your own products, or you aspire to, either way, hopefully you've got some new ideas, if not a roadmap for how you can do it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad everyone was here with us today. And as always, we take solicitation for ideas from our community. So if you've been live streaming here, type it right in the chat and let us know. And if not, send a message to the Podetize team and we'll be happy to cover one of these topics on a future episode. So thanks everyone for listening. I'm Tracy, along with my co-host and partner, Tom. We will be back next week with another Feed Your Brand.
Okay.
Almost said the binge factor again. Whew.
You almost said the
Occupational
binge
hazard
factor.
with having too many episodes.
Well, that's all right. This is an occupational hazard of having too many podcasts, or many podcasts we each record.
Yep. Hey, Cody, quick thing here.
Yeah.
Can you please make sure that the team adds to the edit notes for this podcast? And how, for all of those of you listening out here, I'm revealing our process on air right now as the best way for communicating to get what you need from your editors. And so here's one of the ways. I realized as we were talking about it, originally when we did our sort of introduction and we talked about the different types of products and everything, we didn't mention book in that very first 5 minutes. But we did
I brought book into it later.
Yeah, we did identify a book as a product about halfway through the episode. So I want to make sure that our description paragraph includes book as a definition as one of the many defined product types. And so they won't necessarily pick that up because we didn't say it in the introduction of our show, right? Of the episode. So I want to make sure that gets added to the edit notes, that in addition to all the things we describe as products that we're covering in our description paragraph, we'd love to make sure that they add the word book in there.
Got it.
Yeah, that's very important.
But you have to put that in the edit notes because they wouldn't know to add that later, even though we did define it. They'd have to really understand that we were expanding the definition
really
that we
good.
said at the beginning. They're
really
not mind readers.
Process tip, Tracy. It is because, very often we plan an episode topic and we plan, key talking points, and something else occurs in the middle of it, and you don't want to exclude it just because you didn't originally set up that you were going to talk about that. So, if you do a lot of preparation the way we do, because even, there was some social media, little promotional video that was put out either today or yesterday about this topic. So, we planned it ahead, and the description, like you said, was written, but you've got to make sure that if you call an audible in the middle of a podcast, which we did, I guess that you make sure you have that feedback loop. So it definitely becomes a part of your keywords for the episode and your description, and maybe even needs to be woven into the title.
Absolutely.
Yep. Very important. Behind the scenes work. Yeah, it was interesting. So we didn't mention this on the podcast because I felt it would have been a little too self-serving. I don't know if we ever published it, Tracy, but was Tracy and I launched, or we're starting to record the Next Little Thing podcast that she mentioned in that episode. We recorded another podcast that was called Behind the Next Little Thing. I don't know if we ever published it, but the idea was, hey, we're going to give a peek behind the curtain of all the decisions we make when going through the process of planning the launch of that podcast and recording some of those early episodes. And we thought that would be interesting. And I don't think we ever finished that out. It's something that probably we ought to do again as we launch some of, whatever the next new podcast is we do, because that would, I think, be useful for new podcasters. JT on Facebook commented, treat it like a documentary. Love it. Ryan Reynolds did the same thing a few years back and created one of the most cinematic commercials I've ever seen. Hardly feels like an ad, but hold on. Now it moved. Hardly feels like an ad, but totally and effectively builds a relationship between the audience and the product. There you go.
Sent a YouTube link, so that's great there. So make sure you check that out.
Okay. Hey, Cody, please note Susan's comment about having trouble accessing something on her website.
The back end of her website. Yeah.
We need to get to the bottom
Send her
of
to
that.
Christina, please.
Yeah. Gonna get
Christina
that
can help. Yeah.
Of course.
Cool. Let's see. Thank you for comments. Hold on. And another comment from Facebook. As a side note, if you haven't written a book but have a backlog of podcast episodes, that can be a great starting point for you or a ghostwriter to create a book. No, that's absolutely true. I didn't really go too deep into that. I think
we have another episode on that.
I think we do have another episode we've done on that. John Livesey, the podcaster we mentioned, he does it every year, just about. He records, publishes an episode every week. Usually takes 10 to 12 of his episodes from the year, selectively choosing them, and then takes the transcripts that we created for his blogs, gives them to a ghostwriter, has them edited differently for a book, which is perfectly appropriate in most cases, and then adds to them a little bit. And so since he's been working with us, he's done 4 books, Tracy? And actually, you gave him a quote for one of his first books on his book cover, because you called him the pitch whisperer. Yeah, and now he adopted that. He took it as a badge of honor, owned it, and had his podcast intro re-recorded with a professional voiceover artist, because it was something you were an Inc. magazine columnist, and so he actually took that and said, and according to Inc. magazine, he's the pitch whisperer, known as the pitch whisperer, and that became a part of his intro. So going forward. So anyway, for what that's worth, talk about maximizing your podcast to create more content, to market and grow your personal brand, your business brand, raise awareness for who you are and what you do. I love it. I love completely squeezing every last drop of value out of every episode. It gets me, I geek out on it. I get excited about it. I love it when you do it. I feel pain inside when I talk to a prospect that has 200 episodes and all they've done is put it out as an audio show and a little blurb on the website for each episode. I'm like,
I know,
oh my
so
goodness,
much they could have been doing.
Well, and there's still so much value they can still get out of it. That's, the point. So,
we had a pretty fun comment on YouTube by a user. His name is Diddy71817. Not sure if we know who that is, but they advocate for TheraBreath. They said that it's actually really good.
No, look, this is true. If you want to listen to that Next Little Thing episode, I really talk about it. It's something that, quite honestly, for a lot of my life, I was embarrassed about. I had people make fun of me there's a few times I've worked for other companies. I never really lasted very long. I'm much better being independent, but I I had, coworkers make fun of me, call me halitosis breath, things like that behind my back. It was embarrassing. And this is not for lack of really caring about it and trying to do something about it. I used to have toothbrush and toothpaste at work, and after lunch, I'd go in the bathroom and brush my teeth. So I was brushing like 3 times a day. And there's just something about my body chemistry that, you know what, it no matter what I did hygiene wise would happen. This product has eliminated that problem from my life. Like completely eliminated it. I started using it morning and night. That's sort of what they recommend. I've gotten to the point where really I only have to do it once a day to maintain. And I have no bad breath issues in my life at all. And I would think, Tracy, you can attest to that, right? I mean, heck, you're my wife.
Yeah,
right?
unfortunately for me, if I had a superpower, it would be super smell. So like I'm super sensitive. And so it's a kind of, yeah. So I have to tell you, when I saw it and
you found it and you said, hey, why don't we give it a try? I mean, we tried everything, right?
Yeah.
But why not try it?
And when it, the other day, I think you said to me, just not even that long ago, you said to me, like,
I just was like checking in, confirming,
like,
hey,
is it still
working? Yeah, there's no issue, right?
Yeah,
because I'm only doing it once a day.
Yeah, he used to do it twice a day, and now he only does it once a day, but I can't tell the difference. Like there's no difference. And so, to me, it's very miraculous.
Well, and because, I mean, truth be told, I mean, I'm not the one that notices. Those of us that have the problem really don't notice very often, but am I correct that it's eliminated the problem?
Completely.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, you got a friend, family member that has an issue with bad breath, and it's
kind of hard to mention to other people, though.
It is hard. It's a tough thing. Those of us, it's called TheraBreath. I
just put the link to the product in the.
You put a link to the actual product?
No, to the
episode,
to the episode, which has a link to the product.
All right,
yeah.
Cody, you could probably find it on Amazon or something. Yeah, there we go. TheraBreath. It's the thing. It's a hard thing to talk to someone about if you notice they have the problem. It's a hard thing to do.
No, I'm laughing because our whole episode we're like now gone off on
derailed completely from what we were talking about today. Okay, fine.
Laughing,
but we had a question, so let's answer it. I mean, the reality is, if they have any awareness they have bad breath, and believe me, most people that have this chronic problem are aware of it, they're probably going to be a little embarrassed if you bring it up. I'm not going to lie. They are. But if you've got a real solution that helps them, it's going to open up their world, and they're going to thank you for it after the fact. So,
which is why the story, rather than telling you have this thing, but why the story, that it worked for you. And you're being honest and authentic about it. And that's why those success stories from other people can be really, really, really important. So, Anne, I dropped in the chat a screenshot. And so it's there's at the bottom of the page, it says everyone, and has like a document, a smiley face, and 3 dots at the bottom where you type into the chat. If you click that document, it has the drop boxes and everything. But if you click it's not there. I thought, save chat. If you click the 3 dots that's over next to that, right next to the smiley face, it says save chat, and it'll download a file for you.
That's actually a good Zoom tip.
Yeah, it's a really good Zoom tip,
podcasters in general. And another tip about your lighting in video, you can see what's happening to me because the time change happened and the sun is farther on my window and creating all these white spots on my green screen.
Cody, drop me out to an attendee for a minute and then bring me back. But let me see if maybe as attendees, it's not there.
Okay, try that out. So you're going to kick Tracy out of the meeting. Okay, cool. So let's see. She doesn't have the 3 dots, Anne says, Tracy.
Yeah, I know. That's why.
Well, so if she doesn't, that's something we could always provide upon request,
letting you
I
drop
guess.
me out?
No, let me drop you from co-host.
Hold on. Let me see what I can do.
See, I can still see it now, but
Panelists, Tracy,
yeah, it can't drop me to a participant. I can't.
remove. I can remove you.
No, but I think you make me, you kick
kick
me
you out of the
Yeah, I
altogether.
think that would kick her out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Maybe we
Okay.
need to look at our Zoom meeting settings and see if that's a feature we can enable for everyone
Sure.
Yeah. In the meantime,
in the future.
Oh no, see, you know what happened is all the other stuff disappeared, but save chat is still there. And so that's kind of interesting. So here
Well,
we go. Hold
save-
on, I'm dropped it in. I've got it.
Save
So
the
meeting
chat
save
and then
chat. It's right
upload
there
it.
for
There
you,
you go.
Anne. Hopefully that'll work. So yeah, when I get the 3 dots, it says panelists can chat with, and I have the ability to do it, but the save chat is at the top of the list, but the save chat is still there. Interesting.
Okay, cool. All righty.
Okay,
Well,
well, that's it for everybody.
I
If
think
you
that
don't have any
covers
other
it.
questions, next week's topic is the tech of recording, how to recover lost recordings in Zoom. We've had it happen.
Oh boy, I had, speaking of, and he wouldn't mind me telling you, John Livesey called me up last week, panicked because he thought he lost a recording. And you know what? I'll save the rest of the story for next week. But this
Let's
happens
open loop
more
that thing.
often than
Yeah.
you think. So
Yeah,
right.
exactly. It totally does. It does happen. So, okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you next week. And yes, we are having one next week, and we are having
Yeah,
one at the
we're
end of the year
we're
because
here all
the
week.
holidays are on the weekend. So we will be here.
We're here all week. So don't be shy. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, take care. Bye.